Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mindel Archives. This week is Parshas Noach, and this reminds me how the Rebbe was very passionate about Sheva Mitzvahs, the 7 laws of Bnei Noach. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read you soon just a small paragraph that the Rebbe said that if the Goyim would keep the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, we wouldn't have a Holocaust. He wrote it with his handwriting. Because the Rebbe was whole. The Rebbe had to do this mitzvah of Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. In other words, the Rebbe was passionate in many, many things. I mean, the Rebbe spoke about a lot of things. But he spent time on Russian Jews. He spent time on Mihu Yehudi, who is a Jew. Also, Neshek, after the 6-Day War, all the Mivtzoyim, about the liberated lands. That's what he called it. He didn't call it Shtochim. He called it liberated lands. Also prayer in public school, moments of silence. And also the last thing, but he spoke the last Fabringen about Abbas Yisrael, Zdoke, and Moshiach. So everything in this world had to be done before Gimel Tammuz. The Rebbe as a Nossi, not only, as we once spoke, not only a Chabad Nossi, not only a Nossi for Klal Yisrael, he was a Nossi for the world. So the Rebbe had to cover the inyan for Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. So about Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach in the past, we already spoke about the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Laws, that the Rebbe asked Rabbi Mindel, when he went there to Yisrael then, that he asked him to make a Shulchan Aruch, a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, or Shulchan Aruch, I'm not sure, of Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. So Rabbi Mindel told the Rebbe that he has no time. He had no time. First of all, my mother-in-law, his wife was very sick, and he had to take care of her. The Rebbe gave him then a lot of shlichusim. He went to different countries. You know what? He wrote books. He wrote the Talks and Tales. He wrote the Igris Kodesh. He wrote the English. He was very busy. And he's only a human being. So he said to the Rebbe, I just don't have time, I can't. So the Rebbe said that he should ask some Kohen Galite. So he asked, I mentioned that, he asked already a couple of Kohen Galite. And they started to do the Shulchan Aruch and Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. They based it on the Shulchan Aruch. There was a Rav, it was a big Rav in Williamsburg. His name was Rabbi Yonason Steif, Olav HaSholem. So Rabbi Yonason Steif, I think, started to write the Shulchan Aruch on Sheva Mitzvahs. So I think they based the Shulchan Aruch on him. I'm not sure exactly how it went, but I have it right here, what he wrote and what they wrote. So what happened, so the Rebbe, they gave it, so the two Yigalite wrote, they gave it to the Rebbe. The Rebbe was holding it in his room for a long time, and then he gave it to Rabbi Mindel, and that's it. I didn't hear anything from Rabbi Mindel about that. I just found it in my archives from Rabbi Mindel. I had no instruction for Rabbi Mindel, and I don't know what we should do, whether we should write a Shulchan Aruch, we should give it out, we should print it, or we should not print it. I don't know. But the Rebbe hat sich sehr gekocht in making a Shulchan Aruch. Now, what is the doubt? Why am I besfeikis whether we should print this Shulchan Aruch or we should not? So I'll tell you. There was not a Chabadnik, and I'm going to read you soon what he wrote to the Rebbe. He started to write a Shulchan Aruch on Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. And he wrote to Rabbi Mindel, and Rabbi Mindel showed this to the Rebbe, his letter, and I'll read you his letter. But first let me read what the Rebbe answered him. So the Rebbe answered him like this, about printing the Shulchan Aruch. Michtov niskablu, I received your letter. V'hazman groma, time is sensitive. And li'ishur, permitting u'tshuas chayin al dvar zayim mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Bevadai, for sure, you should ask advice b'Rabbonim mumchim, expert Rabbonim, v'askonim, and also communal leaders, b'hesem la'achraya shebedover. It's a big responsibility to do it. So he got this answer, and I'll read you soon what the Rebbe, what he wrote before this. I gave you the answer first. Then a Chabadnik wrote not only one but quite a few, and it was a little different answer. The Rebbe answered them, if we can find a mumcha, experience, that can do it in a way that it shouldn't antagonize goyim, then maybe it's better not to give out a kuntris or a shulchan aruch, something like that. So that answer is not a positive answer. So I don't know. Even though the not Chabadnik that started to write, the Rebbe gave him more a positive answer, but this didn't seem so. I don't know what to do. Of course, if there would be somebody here that knew that I should have asked Rabbi Groner. Rabbi Groner would have probably answered me, tell me exactly what it means, or Rabbi Mindel, of course. But I don't know who to ask today. So the Vaila Liktos that's lying here, and I didn't do anything. So let me just read what this person wrote to Rabbi Mindel, that the Rebbe answered this letter. So this letter is he writes like this: Hagon Rav Nissen Mindel, Shalom Evrocha. As you know, Kveit Kedushas Admur Shlita has instructed me to consult with Rabbonim, as I just read, Mumchim Vaskonim, in connection with my work on Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Reb Mendel Futefas, he writes, Shlita, persists in reminding me that as far as he's concerned, if this means single individuals who are both Rabbonim and Mumchim and Askonim, then Kveit Kedushas Admur Shlita was referring above all to you. That means that Rabbi Mendel Futefas said that the only one, the Rebbe meant that Rabbi Mindel is the one who you have to consult with. In any case, Rabbi Mendel Futefas insists that I should do nothing in this area without first consulting with you. That's how he writes to Rabbi Mindel. After having met with you in Long Beach last Kislev, I am convinced that Rabbi Mendel Futefas' advice is, as usual, correct. So he said, consulted with Rabbi Mindel, and according to Rabbi Mendel Futefas was a mashpia. If he would have answered something, Rabbi Mindel never told me anything like that. So I just found this. So that's all. Now then he writes a whole letter how he writes to Rabbi Mindel what he plans to do, and then he finishes off his. I might mention here that it is hoped that at the conclusion of the Noach legal system, it will be possible with the Haskoma or Bracha of Kveit Kedusha Admur Shlita to proceed with the preparation of a Shulchan Aruch or a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch for B'nai Noach. However, both of these last mentioned projects requires a team of researchers, and consequently can be gotten probably underway until more adequate financial resources are at hand, and then he writes more about it, but that's not Negaya now. So there is a suffix whether, I don't know, whether even Reb Mendel said that you must discuss it with Rabbi Mindel. So that's number one. I want to tell you, this week is Noach, so I thought I would mention that to you. Now I want to read to you another letter, and this quite a few letters, but I chose one to read, that the Rebbe got from a Catholic priest from England. Dear Rabbi Schneerson, it was indeed an honor and pleasure to receive your letter of 17th of Elul. In the midst of your intensely busy life, it was most gracious of you to reply to me. The Rebbe answered him, In your letter, you mentioned the promotion amongst the Catholic students of the 7 laws divinely given to Noah. Although in Catholic moral teaching, these laws are not mentioned by name, their content and implications certainly form part of the corpus of our moral teaching. More explicit emphasis is given to the 10 commandments given by God to Moses. Obedience to these laws and their implications forms the basis of our ethical teaching and preaching. I thank you for your concern in mentioning this matter. I enclose a small gift of 10 sterling and respectively request that this be used to help to relieve the poverty of Jews who have come from Russia. This gift comes to you with my best wishes for your birthday. This was before the Rebbe's Yom Haledes. So this is a letter that he wrote. The Rebbe answered. Now, before I read that answer, the Rebbe, I just want to read a paragraph that I mentioned before about another. There's many letters that the Rebbe wrote to people, but this is just one paragraph before I read the letter that the Rebbe answered to this Catholic priest. There is, of course, no need to emphasize to you the importance of promoting the 7 Noah commandments among Gentiles. In our day and age, it does not require much imagination to realize that by way of example, had these divine commandments been observed and adhered to by all the children of Noah, namely the nations of the world, individually and collectively, there would not have been any possibility in the natural order of things for such a thing as the Holocaust. And then the Rebbe goes into the whole thing, and we have no time to read. It's amazing what the Rebbe writes more. But I want to read to you what the Rebbe's answer over here. This is to acknowledge a receipt of your letter in which you introduce yourself as a Catholic Christian and outline high points of your life and public services, noting that you have a strong desire to continue to utilize your capacities to make an important contribution in certain areas of public endeavor. To a person of your background, the Rebbe writes, there is no need to emphasize at length the importance for every person to realize his or her potential, especially one who has been endowed with special talent and capacities and has used them successfully. There is an ancient Talmud saying, which is both timeless and universal. Nothing stands in the way of the will. Coupled with the assurance, make the proper effort and you will succeed. In view of your experience in the past and your determination for the future, I am confident that you will find the proper ways and means to achieve your goals, all the more so since in such a case one receives aid from on high. At the same time, the Rebbe writes, I would like to call attention to a point which is really self-evident, but because of its importance cannot be overemphasized. I refer to the divinely ordained 7 categories of moral laws and principles which have been given to Noah and his descendants by the Creator and Master of the world. All humanity. These include such fundamental precepts as the prohibition of idolatry, robbery, the laws of justice, and more. Although common sense dictates that these laws are indispensable as the basis of any decent human society, experience has shown that human nature being what it is, common sense has not been a reliable factor in the implementation of the said basic laws. If there are any based only on the dictates of common sense, suffice it to mention that the Holocaust of the Second World War sprouted and burst forth in a country and people that had been most prominent in the area of human thought, philosophy and ethics, but because it was all based on human mind and not on the recognition of Supreme Being, it could be twisted to devise and justify the most horrid inhumanity and cruelty in human history. It is therefore everyone's obligation, especially in this day and age, to promote the said moral laws and ordained by the Supreme Being. Certainly those who have a prominent position in the society have a greater responsibility to strengthen the moral fabric of the society by example and precept, especially among the young generation, for a better and brighter future for all. And then the Rebbe gives him a bracha. So this is the answer that the Rebbe answered him. So anyway, this is the Shabbat Mitzvah. So I wanted to read this to you. And the Shulchan Aruch I don't know whether we should go on and print it or we should not print it. If anybody has a special suggestion, when the Rebbe said Rabbonim, he means Rabbonim in the halacha. I don't know if he means about whether we should print it or not. I don't know if that's to ask Rabbonim. I mean, if we would have so, and according to this letter that we see here, we see that if a person uses his seichel, that's what happens. Everything has to be because of, the Rebbe says, from the Eibishter. This reminds me, it has nothing to do with this, but I might as well tell you. When my father was, Olav Shalom was sick, he was in Mount Sinai, I was in the hospital, I went to visit him, so a doctor called me over, and he said, I want to show you something. So he came into a room and he showed me 2 x-rays. One x-ray is when the person that smoked cigarettes, and the other x-ray was the person that never smoked. And he says, look, he says to me, look, this person smoked, look how black the lungs are. He said that's a terrible thing to smoke, because look at what smoking does. That's what he tells me. Good, I hear. And he explained to me according to Seichel. An hour later, I go downstairs, I go outside, I see that same doctor standing and smoking. I said to him, I'm shocked. How you explained to me, and I was convinced. I'm not a smoker, but I was convinced what you're saying. It's horrible. He says, yeah. I said, that's because I can't hold myself back. And this goes in everything like that. If we use that the Eibishter said so, then it's a different story. So this is what I want to bring out this week. In Mitzvah Hashem, next week we will continue our weekly program. Maybe we'll still continue the more letters that the Rebbe answered to many people about Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai. Thank you.